Good evening, good afternoon, I guess it still is. Hi, everybody. Welcome to MIT Reads and to the Hayden Library. My name is Nina Davis-Millis. I am the MIT Library's Director of Community Engagement. And I lead the MIT Reads program, which incredibly to me is now in its 7th year. The program, very briefly, tries to build community and foster understanding by bringing people together around reading a book together. So this semester, we are reading Together by Dr. Vivek Murthy. And if you've had a chance to read it, I think you'll agree there's a lot to unpack in the book. And if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, no problem. It will be there for you whenever. So today, we've brought together some community members from MIT to explore some of the themes that Dr. Murthy discusses in his book and how they play themselves out here at MIT. Now, if you want to continue the discussion, there will be a group meeting here tomorrow at noon. Sorry, it's for MIT people only. We're asking you to sign up on our website. And before I do anything else, I want to thank all of our partners who helped us pick the book and plan this and all the other events, and they are the Health Promotion Working Group, Community Wellness at MIT Medical, the Division of Student Life's DSL Reads program, and the MIT Libraries. Okay, I want to begin the program by reading a brief land acknowledgement. MIT acknowledges indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of the land and the enduring relationship that exists between them and their traditional territories. The land on which we sit is the traditional unceded territory of the Wampanoag, Massachusetts, and other tribal nations. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced occupation of their territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse indigenous people connected from time immemorial to this land on which we are gathered today. Okay, so I just want to say, I will say it again, we are live streaming, so when it comes to the question and answer portion, I will ask everyone to use a mic so that people at home can hear you. You will be on camera, and if you do not wish your voice and face to be on camera, no problem. You are welcome to jump into the live stream, put in your question there, put it on a piece of paper and hand it to me, or get out your mobile device, which, while you have it out, please mute it, and you can email me. I am ninadm@mit.edu. All right, now let me introduce our cast of characters. Larry Anderson is the David H. Koch 62 head coach of MIT's men's basketball team. Since joining the athletics department in 1995, he has amassed an amazing list of accomplishments, including 9 NCAA tournament bids and induction into the New England Basketball Hall of Fame. As if that weren't enough, Larry also serves as housemaster of Tang Hall and describes himself as believing in giving more than receiving. I should also mention that Coach Anderson will have to leave us for a 5 o'clock basketball practice, so thank you for making time for us today. Yunbeen is a junior studying chemical and biological engineering. Yunbeen characterizes herself as a 1.5 generation immigrant who grew up with a strong affinity to both the US and Korea. And she tells me that her powerful family connection made it hard for her to leave home when she started college. Here at MIT, Yunbeen focuses on finding and fostering community. She's involved with the Medlinks, Wellbeing Ambassadors, Korean Cultural Association, and PanHealth. Megan Jordan is the Associate Director of MindHandHeart, where she applies her 20 years' experience in student and academic affairs to facilitating connections across the Institute. Megan holds an Ed.D. in Higher Education Administration from Northeastern, and her doctoral dissertation there was on emotional intelligence development via mentoring. Megan, I am very grateful to say, has agreed to kind of facilitate the discussion while also being a panelist herself. Thea Keith Lucas served as MIT's Episcopal Chaplain from 2013 to 2020 and is presently, and newly, the Chaplain to the Institute and Associate Dean of the Office of Religious, Spiritual, and Ethical Life. She holds a master's degree in theology from the Harvard Divinity School, was ordained as an Episcopal priest in 2006. In her free time, Thea likes to hike, go camping, and play board games with her husband and 2 children. And finally, Franklin Nguyen is a sophomore majoring in computational biology. He is a first-generation and low-income minority student with interests in global health, addressing social inequities, entrepreneurship, healthcare policy and innovation, and design. His extracurricular involvement includes Wellbeing Ambassadors, Medlink's MIT Global Health Alliance, orientation leaders, and associate advisors. He enjoys rock climbing, creating YouTube content, reading, spending time with friends, and trying new cafes in Cambridge and Boston. Thank you all for being here, and Megan, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you very much, Nina. So my first question for the panel is, what are the challenges to building community and connections at MIT?
Well, I'll start off. I think the challenges are opportunities, first of all. The challenges are that we're one community, but the challenges that we're silos too. We have so many people from so many different backgrounds from around the globe, and then when you have those different kinds of experiences, you have to really, really be thoughtful about engaging people and thinking about how they feel, what messaging you want to use to get those across. But those challenges that are there that exist in that, there are also opportunities, because at MIT, we connect in many different ways without even knowing that. Just say, look at what we're doing today as panelists. We connected a little bit before this. In our new presidential search, we serve on committees that gives us an opportunity to provide opportunities for us to engage there. And I think the more and more that we engage with people, some of those challenges go away and they turn into opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, starting MIT was a little bit different for me because I started entirely Zoom. I'm class of 24. So the physical distance was one of the barriers in creating community, but now that I am on campus and kind of able to integrate my life into what people would call like more normal and like pre-pandemic, I think an even bigger challenge lies in that MIT offers so many opportunities that you almost like have this FOMO if you don't take advantage of everything that you're given. And we all have 24 hours. We have to sleep, we have to eat, we have to go to classes, and then to take advantage of all of this, it's just like I'm always running low on time. And depending on what you prioritize, you know, like y'all know the really famous triangle of sleep, socialize, and academics. It's like you can only pick 2 out of the 3. And it's a challenge to get yourself to make time to socialize. It's always normal and priority to socialize in high school, at least for me, but in college, it's just you have so many things that you could be doing. Will you make socialization like your priority? And learning how to do that consciously was the first challenge for me.
Anyone else?
I think that there can be a wonderful sort of lightness and openness and curiosity at the beginning of the year. And when I joined the chaplains, one of the other chaplains said, well, you can just watch the posture of the students you're talking to, and you'll know where you are in the semester. And so I think the building habits is so important. It's easy for it to just feel sort of natural and organic at the beginning, but if it doesn't turn into like, in my daily routine, I will run into people. In my weekly routine, I will see this team or this class. I will put myself in the way of life and joy. If that's not built in, then I think that just, yeah, it becomes, I choose classes and sleep, and that's all I can do.
And also, I think of how many times I walk down the infinite corridor and I just try to smile or say hello to someone, but they are laser focused on where it is that they're getting to, or they're looking down at their phone, or they have their headphones in. And so we have a lot of missed opportunity on campus for just very easy connection, like a smile to one another.
Yeah, just to add to like the last few points that have been said, I think this community is full of workaholics for sure. And I think from what I've seen in my peers, people do tend to choose studying and sleep over their social life because they care a lot about getting good grades, and I guess that's just kind of the culture here. But then also, I think, just to nail that point again, we are such a diverse environment and have people from all cultures around the world with all walks of life. And I think that sometimes it's like easy to forget that, and making sure that you're aware of how you behave and like the way you speak to someone might not be like received in the way that you intended. And I think that could be an issue and has been sometimes. So.
Great, thank you. So as a follow-up, when have you seen community and connections being built on campus, and what worked really well? What stood out to you?
A great thing that I have noticed both in words and in actions is because this struggle is uniting for students, they understand how maybe the freshmen are feeling when they're first exposed to all of this rigorous coursework. Upperclassmen, at their own cost, at no benefit to them, are always willing to help out and always willing to make time to interact with people who are younger than them. And I think that's so unique and something you don't know before you're actually at MIT. It's easy to think that high academic rigor comes with cutthroat kind of competitive nature. And although I guess I'm not every single major at MIT, but at least in my major and the dorm life that I have experienced, everyone like makes time for each other because they empathize. Like, even if they had a hard time, they don't want to impose that on, not impose, but let that happen to somebody else. They're always willing to share advice, and sometimes the advice that wasn't asked for can turn out to be the best in certain situations, because like you don't know what you don't know unless the upperclassman warns you about it or tells you something that you should be on the lookout for. So those are the cases, especially since COVID. I've learned so much just because I had that disconnect, but upperclassmen were trying really hard to fill that in so that we can, as upperclassmen, start leading the underclassmen so that we don't feel like too left out because we didn't have that quintessential MIT Frosh experience.
Just to bounce off of that, I think when I was deciding where I wanted to go to school, something that really appealed to me was that I did think that the community here, or like students here, were a lot more collaborative than they were competitive. And I remember specifically, like in my interview, my interviewer told me about one of her experiences when she was an undergrad here, where someone spent like a few hours helping her on a physics preset. When she didn't really know how to solve it by herself. And again, I also agree, like you don't really know to what extent like this sort of, or like how this culture works until you're here. And to my experience, like it's really hard to get through the work without, you know, like getting help from other people, your friends, and like getting through it together. And I think the rigor of the work definitely does like bring us closer as a community because, you know, even if you're coming from a more like a stronger academic background, the classes still don't get any easier. So like no matter what, people understand like we're all kind of having a difficult time like getting through our coursework, but it's easier if we're not trying to beat each other in this academic race, rather just like work on the same thing and to the same goal. And it wasn't that long ago since I was a freshman, and I think using like upperclassmen as a resource was something that I really tried to take advantage of, whether it was like just asking, is this too much, my involvement, or what classes I was taking, or how to fix my resume, things like that. I think I can really appreciate how collaborative the environment is here.
I really appreciate the way students, I guess I was about to say just students, but I think all members of this community will kind of lean in on curiosity. There's a way that there's a delight that people are so different, and a joy in the like weird thing that you know so much about that I've never heard of. So I think that shared curiosity that brought us to this place is a real gift. And one place I see that working is the ADIR Interfaith Dialogue program, where students, undergrads and grads, agree to meet over the course of the year to get to know each other on a deeper level, knowing that they'll be put in a group with people who are from a completely different tradition or have no tradition at all, and that they'll be looking for those kind of shared places of human meaning in the midst of so much difference.
Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think so, just a little bit. MIT is one of those places where a lot of bright minds come together and we think seriously about our schoolwork and what we do in our labs. But one of the best things that I've found here that works really, really well is when we have fun. I don't hear that word mentioned a whole lot here. And so wellness is a big topic on campus right now. And I'm looking out in the audience right now, and I look at a person who helps us a lot with that. But informal recreation, doing something outside of your lab and getting to know something different, taking time to get to know the person. And so a lot of that happens organically. Years ago when I came to MIT, there was no dining plan. And so we have a dining plan right now, and I know at that time a lot of people didn't want it. I don't think MIT could get rid of it right now. So because you talk about time management and all the things that people are so busy with, I know with the students that I teach and the sports that I coach, I rarely ask them to come to my office. I go to the dining halls and eat with them and make the connections there. And I say, I have the schedules, it's many of the students I deal with. I say, you walk into class, I'll walk with you. But I'm trying to get to know them, because we can put programs in place and say, look, let's talk about wellness. But wellness is not actually talking about wellness. It's actually being wellness and doing wellness. And you won't have to ever have a program to talk about it. So the actions that you take with recreation, PE classes, meditation, the appropriate sleep, somebody modeling that for someone.
Great, thank you. So Larry, this next question is for you as well. How do you work with a team to incorporate new members, as must happen at the start of every season, and how to form a healthy team identity?
For me, I guess, working with a smaller group, or I'm going to look at it from our team standpoint, a basketball team. I could also do it from a head of house perspective too, because both my wife and I, we live in Tang, but I'll stick with the team. I think helping a person, putting a face on MIT long before they get here. MIT has, people have a preconceived notion about what MIT is and should be. I've had one parent thank me when they came here with their prospective student. They said, thank you for putting a face on MIT. And so what we try to do is coach the person before we coach the player, before we coach the student. And that's finding out more about what they like, where they're from, where their backgrounds are. if you think about our culture here, it's easy to want to ask a certain person to go play golf. But where they're from, golf may be too expensive or something. So, well, it might be a good idea to ask them what kind of food they like or go play a different kind of game, and that may make them feel so welcome by understanding that, because the other way around, even though we're trying to include them and make them feel like they belong, it could further make them not feel that way. So getting to know them, getting to know their families before they get here, helping them move into their dorms, and by the time they get here, you introduce them to people who are going to be their teammates, and all you got to do then, by the time they get there, is basically get out of the way because the work has been done before they get here.
Great, thank you. I want to circle back to something that Thea kind of started to touch on a little bit, and that's that at MIT, one of our values is excellence and curiosity. And so you were starting to talk a little bit about curiosity, and I want to know from others, how do you stay curious about others and open up conversations with people who are not like you?
Well, chaplains are kind of professional nosy people. So this is kind of just how we operate. But it does take energy. I remember when we were coming back after our office was off campus for a year, and a lot of the other student life offices, everybody worked remotely. I thought, well, this would be a great idea. Let me offer office blessings for people because they're coming back to a space they haven't been in. And I have to say, like, as an introvert, like I had that moment of like putting myself out there, like, oh, they're gonna think I'm so weird. Like, nobody is gonna sign up for the office blessing. And I can't say it was like everyone in the Division of Student Life had me come stop by, but I think there is this way that if we are willing to put ourselves out there and make what may seem like a strange invitation, other people are like, oh, let me see what it feels like to meet you there. I mean, I had wonderful conversations. I talked to a student recently who was sharing about a new friend she'd made. She's like, yeah, she'd been grocery shopping and she got a pomegranate and she didn't really know what to do with a pomegranate, so she asked me to come over and we disassembled the pomegranate and got all the seeds out together, and it was awesome. And like, who would think like, I want to make friends. Why don't I ask somebody to take apart a pomegranate with me? But it's those odd little connections that are real to us. They make it possible for other people to share more of themselves.
I also find when I meet somebody, asking them about their hobbies and just seeing the way that they light up and how happy they are to share with someone why they like to do what that thing is. And you can really just draw them into a conversation in that way that then you can open it up to other things.
Yeah, okay, this might not be the healthiest thing you can do, but basically, I love social interactions, but there's the introvert side of me like not making plans. So what I have found myself doing is I sign up for commitments on campus, like clubs, and that's a natural way for me to be working on things while meeting new people. And when I meet these new people, I like to listen to them and like collect things or questions they might say that I find interesting, and I kind of propagate it to others. Like if they ask this like weird question to new people they meet, I start doing that too. So I like kind of taking little bits and pieces of people I meet on campus just because they're so diverse and keeping them in mind and kind of using them myself. So I just morph into this pieces of other people I meet, and I think it's just like, if you read a book, you'll start to pick up on that writer's style of writing. It's just, I pick up on my friend's style of speaking or asking questions, and I also try to be on the lookout for programs that I can attend. It's like specifically designed for you to meet new people. I think I recently attended one by, I think it's called IXE now, Intercultural Engagement, previously Office of Multicultural Programming. There was like a conference that I went to. It was called Multicultural Conference. And they literally took us off campus with a random group of people who like decided to apply to attend this conference. And we just talked. It was like a night of talking and learning about things that you might not in the classroom. And I thought it was super interesting that there are opportunities like this that people probably don't know about. So TLDR, I like stay alert about what might be offered to me and just try to meet new people.
Thank you.
You asked about how to build community and connect with people who
Are different from you. How do you stay curious about
How do you
others?
stay curious? It's a difficult. Well, for me, I guess I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm just curious anyway. But or how can you not be curious at MIT? I think somebody said it earlier. Just trying to engage with them, other people, asking more about them. If you can understand the value in it for you, because we're always thinking about something for us, then I think that would help us remain engaged. I also believe that there has to be some cognitive humility in that too, and not just thinking of yourself less. And because many times you can get into a debate without even saying a word, with body language and all that. And if you can understand the cognitive humility piece, then I think that can go along with help keeping us curious about things and other people.
So another one of the MIT values is centered on belonging and community. And so focusing on the belonging piece, can you share a time when you felt that you most belonged at MIT? What was it about that community and how they welcomed you that made you feel like you belonged? And what were the actions of the people that you noticed?
Well, when I came to MIT, I was looking for a community, and it was entirely over Zoom. So it was like hopping from Zoom to Zoom that clubs would put on for activities midway, which is just like a day where all clubs kind of show what they're doing and kind of recruit new people. And I happened to hop on, I think, I don't know if I saw them there, but I ran into a newly started club called Korean Cultural Association, which is like one of my main involvements on campus at this point. It was rebranded from Korean Student Association to Korean Cultural Association because we wanted to be more welcoming and not restricted to like ethnically Koreans. Anyone who appreciated the culture, wanted to learn more could join. And when I started off, I was, to be 120% transparent, a little skeptical too. Like, we did see this problem of ethnically Korean people thought it wasn't for them because it was like Korean Cultural Association, and obviously non-Koreans thought, oh, that's a Korean student club. So we had this dilemma for a while, but I essentially joined Exec Council, and we really started to get the ball rolling in the semester we were like on campus, so fall 2021. And it was just like one of my clubs. I enjoyed meeting these people and kind of coming together, throwing events. But one day I was like sitting in one of the meetings that we were planning events for, and contrary to some other clubs that I've experienced, even if like the hour that we've budgeted was over, like the meeting time was officially over, nobody left. Everyone like kept working. Of course, we got distracted a little bit, but we just like talked about so many things that we experienced together. And it was crazy that the little times that I've been spending working on this club just added on to our communal experience, and we just had something that we associated with. And it was crazy because I didn't know these people before coming to KCA, which is abbreviation for our club. And just like the little things added up, and they at one point just became one of my closest friends, not because they took the same classes as me, not because they were living right next doors, but because we were interested in the same things. We were interested in making things happen on behalf of our club. yeah, it just like seeped in very slowly but surely, and now I can like really confidently say I can just go to them with my life problems and they can come to me with their life problems, and we'll just talk about things. Yeah, so in a very non-academic setting, we're like all different majors, we don't take any classes together, but I think a common goal really helped us achieve community.
I think for a lot of people, they find like a strong sense of belonging in their living communities. And I think, so whether that's a dorm or independent living group or Greek life, I currently live in my fraternity, and I remember first moving into the house, it felt very different than living in the dorm that I was in, just because I didn't strongly feel connected to my dorm at the time. And I guess one thing that was different was that, and this still holds true today, like walking to your room, there's usually someone in the commons or a few people in the commons playing video games together or watching a movie, or they're pea sitting together, and it's always an open invite, and you don't really know who to expect there, but you'll always know that you're welcome to join, and if you have time. And I think I felt like an even stronger sense of community during at the beginning of the semester or prior to the semester starting, because we had rush. So the thing about fraternities is that it's really essential to get a new pledge class, so that's of a good size. Otherwise, your fraternity will fizzle out and the chapter will just end. So it was just nice seeing all of my brothers really put like 110% into rush, talking to potential new members, and making sure that, or like feeling obligated to make sure that our frat will succeed in like getting more members and continuing. So yeah, I guess like, and then also I know a lot of the dorm life, and in Burton Connor in specific, I can think of, people are they're very similar to fraternities in that aspect, where they really want to pass on tradition and culture to new members. So I think that's where a lot of people find community.
Great, thank you. So MIT is very decentralized, right? And so there's all these little pockets across campus. So the next question is, how can we at MIT create a culture of togetherness that reaches across the entire institute and balance that with the multiple subcultures of togetherness that we have within our community?
I think
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is tough. I don't know if we can really bring like the entirety of campus into one, but I think it is important that like those pockets have interactions with each other. And although we are decentralized, I feel like campus is a great place for students to stay in general, just because there's so many great spaces. Like Hayden Library is one of the big congregating spaces. I would say one that like pops right up to mind is like the Banana Lounge. It was like a student-run initiative that is very central to a lot of undergrad and probably even grad students' lives. You can crash there whenever you want. It's just like some point that you can return to and kind of rely on it being there whenever, and you have tap access and free food and warm place to nap if you need to. So having those kind of locations that we can depend on, I think, will bring people of different pockets together on campus, I think, yeah. And upkeeping that, I think there's a lot of student advocacy going on to make sure that we don't lose that space, but yeah, just allowing us to have resources to keep that going will help intersectional relationships and interactions keep happening, yeah.
Anyone else?
I just think that's a good example of the principle of feeding what's healthy in the system. So I think you were very right to start us with thinking about the challenges, but sometimes if we stay there, we're just like, oh, like we'll never get everybody together. But celebrating those places where community is happening and feeding more energy there, I think then it ripples out.
And celebrating the traditions that already happen on campus and elevating them maybe to a higher level than they currently are would help as well. Great. So the next question is, we tend to form communities with people with whom we have common ground, but how can we reach across social divides to find and discover common ground with people we don't already know?
I think this one can be really hard. I think particularly, I see, I was saying about like where we are in the semester, that when folks get tired, I think it starts to get a little frayed, and we hear more from students who don't want to work it out with their roommate or want somebody to do something about that person who said that thing, but don't want to have the conversation themselves. And I get it, I don't want to have the conversation either. I would love for it just to get fixed and I could go back to doing my work. But I think there is a part of this commitment to community that's a commitment to staying in it, even when it's hard, or even especially that we show our value for community when we're willing to go that extra bit and talk it out. And I've seen beautiful examples of this. I've been invited to sit in with students who are going through a restorative resolution process, which took hours. And yet there was this heart of like, okay, we are here because we want to learn from each other and we want this to be a better place. So I think it's very possible, but it takes that extra measure of courage and commitment from all of us.
I've often told students, if you're going to an event, and you're going in by yourself especially, and not with a group of friends, go find people that you've never seen before and sit at the table with them and try to open up conversation that way, to get to know somebody new. I try to do that myself when I go into an event with people that I've maybe never met before on campus, and just sit down and say, hi, this is who I am, who are you? The connections that you can find with a perfect stranger are sometimes amazing when you start talking about your backgrounds.
I really agree that when you're struggling, you just close off conflict. You just want to spend as much time as you want on what is causing you this stress, which is like whatever, academics and all that. But I also think if you find maybe a stranger who's going through the same conflict as you, sometimes when you're tired, you get like loopy and like you kind of start talking about things that you might not. Because normally people want to generally upkeep their image, right? They want to be seen in a certain way, but when you're tired, like that all goes out the window. You start talking about things, and I think this relates back to how you have to like start talking to know them. Like if you're trying to keep this image of yourself and only talk about what is like what you thought was socially acceptable, or oh, if they know this about me, they're gonna think I'm a loser or something. But when you're in like your kind of wild state, you're tired and you start talking about things, you might start a conversation about something that y'all never really talked about because you were afraid of being judged. But you'll never know if you'll be judged if you don't try speaking about it. And I don't know, I'm just that type of person who likes talking about deep TM stuff, and it always gets the conversation started, and I discover something new about them. And that happens generally through mutual friends. Like if I know friend A and A knows B, even if I don't know B, I can have a slightly easier time getting the conversation started. But it does take like reaching out, but everyone at MIT is connected. You could probably get to know somebody new if you ask, oh, do you know that person? And the chances are your friends, some of your friends will know them. So yeah, stress can be good, bad, but good sometimes because it lets your guards down. And that's when you meet the best people.
Anybody else?
I would just a little bit to add to that. I think intentionality is really important when you're trying to build community. You talked about it a little bit. If you're having a meeting, have people sit at different tables and get to know each other. And not only that, if we most of us would prefer have us talk together as opposed to people talking at us. And so if you can have those meetings at your round tables be more interactive and talk about themselves or play games against other tables, even though serious work, the interaction is really, really good. Or if you're in another kind of setting, just say, for instance, if you're trying to get somebody to come to an event that's really, really important, but they see things in a different way. If you can get a person that's close to them to ask them as opposed to you, they may show up as opposed to the person who's leading the event to do that. I know many times when I'm coaching and I'm frustrated, and I might sub somebody out, and I said, hey, one of my assistants, you talk to him because I'm not in the right frame of mind to do that right now. And so that person got a great point across where it was much more effective because of the relationship that's there than it could have been if I were involved.
Right. So for Thea, you're a leader of a diverse set of worldviews that also has a shared mission at MIT. How do you build common bonds with such a group?
Well, there's really no substitute for time and proximity. And we have a strange little building that floods regularly. So I'm not saying it's the best building on campus, but it's W11 across from Massey next to the chapel. Puts most of us together. So the Hillel Center and the Muslim prayer room and the Christian Fellowship Lounge are all there, along with offices for chaplains. So we run into each other over and over and catch little pieces of each other's days. And I think that's so foundational. Now we've talked a lot about, like, we have this starting point as all being members of MIT, so we know we have some values in common. That's so true. Like it doesn't matter in my department so much whether you're, Christian or Hindu or Zoroastrian. We are all people who like to jump into the deep end. And also there's just people who really enjoy having a meal together. If they will play silly games with me. People who really appreciate connection. So I think that gives us a great starting point. That we just start with people who have a heart for students and know that we're together around a shared mission. That's true of the chaplains, but I look around and that's true of people all over student life and beyond student life. I just discover more and more amazing colleagues in this place. So we have far more in common than we have differences.
Great, thank you. So then for Franklin and Yunbeen, think back to when you very first started at MIT. How did you find or create a community or find your social group? That very first initial one.
This is, oh, go ahead.
Oh, you can go.
Oh, this is kind of silly, but actually I had two. I am also part of a sorority on campus, and we went through virtual recruitment, and conversations started there. Like, we had a group chat because the upperclassmen wanted to foster, interactions between the pledge class. I think that's what we call us as a group. So I just had people who went through the same process of recruitment as me, and we were like taking GIRs and such, so we could talk, and just people that belong together. Like, we would have no reason, but we could like still talk to each other. But another group that I found was when we were on Zoom class, we had a Discord for GIRs. I think there were channels that you can just hop onto and do homework, and that was maybe set up by admin, unsure. But I was in 1801A, and we had a PSET due, and like, I swear, 30 people were in this one voice channel trying to slough away at this PSET problem because it was just kind of impossible. Like, it had a much wider application than the basic math concepts that we learned in the class, so we had to like do a lot of approximations. But end of the story, we were probably in that channel for about 2 hours. People like trickled away, and 6 of us remained, and that became our PSET group. Yeah, I will say we don't talk that much anymore. We found like our different corners of campus to associate more closely. But if I run into them, I still say hi. And I think one great thing about MIT is it's big but also small. So if you meet somebody in a club but you never talk to them again, at least your interaction is primed. So if you meet them somewhere else because of another opportunity, you are one step closer to becoming like best friends later on. So you know a lot of people, maybe not BFFs with them, but at least you'll have less of an initial like activation energy to get them know from ground up. So PSET group was like my very, very first group at MIT.
And it's very normal to have, a group and then shift into another group and maybe shift again. So, students shouldn't feel like, I get here, this is my one group that I'm going to stay with for 4 years. You're going to have lots of different interactions.
Oh yeah, my PSET group changes every year, probably every semester as well. But yeah, and you can like bring groups together. If y'all end up in 2 different groups or 3 different groups, like it becomes one mega group at the end of the year.
And Franklin?
Yes, so I guess after I was accepted, I think connections online had already started to develop. And I remember we were doing a lot of introductions like on Facebook or Instagram. So I had met a few people there, but still when I first got to campus, I think students will naturally try to make friends. We're all kind of in the same situation where you're coming from everywhere. I was the only person from my high school and like one of like 6 people from Alabama. So there was not really anyone one person I'm still actually pretty close with from Alabama, but we didn't know each other prior. So we're all kind of in the same boat, just wanting to make friends. So I remember my first group actually was formed during REX, which I think is the residential exchange. Is that what it's called? I don't. Experience, something like that. Basically, the dorms will host like fun events with food or where you do something. So I met a few friends in my dorm from there, and then we started connecting with people from other dorms. So it was interesting that my first friend group was actually formed not like exclusive to living in Simmons, where I was at, but we had friends from like maybe 5 dorms. So I really appreciate how we kind of came together, and we're still friends now pretty closely. But again, this was like to add on to a point that was made earlier. It's nice that like groups can coexist. You're not, I guess, labeled as being in only one group. So I have that group that I made during Rex, and then I have my fraternity, and then I have a group chat that's lasted since like over a year that was formed prior to even coming to campus. So I would say those are probably my 3 main communities, but then I still have interactions and friends like outside of that as well, maybe through mutual friends or just, seeing each other online or in person and just wanting to know them one-on-one, and that's happened a lot. So I really do try to make an effort to meet as many people as I can.
Great, thank you.
I think it's time to open up the floor for questions. There's a microphone over there. For those of you who came in a little late, let me just say that if you go to the microphone, you will be on camera. If you have a question and don't want to be on camera, write it on a piece of paper and hand it to me. I'll be sitting right over there. Or you can jump on the live stream and submit the question there, or send me an email. I'm ninadm@mit.edu. So, any questions? While you're thinking about it, I do have one. I was thinking that, Megan, I don't think you answered the question about belonging. And it occurred to me, I know we have a lot of staff watching the live stream. Staff are a very large and often unseen community at MIT, and I would love to hear your answer to the question of what was a time when you felt that you especially belonged?
So I would say this was when I worked in an academic department at MIT. And at MIT, it tends to be very faculty, staff, kind of dividing lines. And a faculty member introduced me to a group of his colleagues and introduced me as his esteemed colleague. And it really took me back because I had never, and I've had a 20-year career more than that at this point in higher ed at 4 different institutions. And I had never seen in over 20 years a faculty member introduce a staff member in that way. To this day, I mean, that is one of the faculty members that I will go to for a gut check on, am I doing the right thing for MIT if I do this thing? Because we've now just built that relationship of trust between the two of us.
Hi, thank you very much for the words. I was wondering what would be your advice for visiting researchers and visiting the students in order to make friends and connect with the institution. I know that that's not the case of any of you, I think, but just in case that you have any ideas. Thank you.
Specifically for researchers, was that?
Or visiting students or visiting researchers, sorry.
Okay, visiting, okay. So for visiting people, the one thing that I would say to ask about is, to start in your department, are there department-wide events or speakers, those types of things that are going on within your department that maybe you haven't gotten on the listserv yet to find out that they're going on. And so if you're a visiting student, I would check with your education office to get on those departmental lists, because sometimes visiting students are missed on those things. And if you're a visiting researcher, ask either your HQ admin assistants or even your HR officer within the department to find out if there's lists that you should be receiving emails to get invited to events, because there are a ton of things that happen in every single department at MIT. And so starting with the department that you're in, because then that's going to help you really make connections to other people quickly. Some departments have lunches that occur pretty regularly that if you're not on those listservs, you're not going to know about them. Some have coffee hours, tea, cookie hours, those types of things that bring people together.
On that note, I don't know if you're an undergrad or a grad student, or beyond that, for my club, actually, I just see these people show up. I don't know how they learn about our events, but we don't say, oh, you're not belonging here. Like, we love everyone who shows up. Like, we want we appreciate that they take their time to come to our events because we spend a lot of time planning the events. We want as many people to enjoy it. So another way that you could like get access to it is a lot of clubs have just Instagrams. So if you look up MIT dot or MIT underscore, I'm sure a list of MIT clubs will like just pop up. And if you like follow some of those that like correspond with your interest, they'll probably post things that are happening. And I can probably say that most clubs are open to just anyone, any MIT community member. So crash one of those. You might find somebody who has like similar interests as you. And I don't know if this is allowed, but you could technically join the dorm spam list. Is it allowed?
I don't know how you do that.
Oh, you could add yourself to emailing list, but there's like WebMoral, I think. It's kind of the website where you add yourself to MIT mailing list because we love emailing mailing lists. It's WebMoira. It's like WEBMOIRA. Yeah, but there's like a centralized system that nobody really talks about because it's like common knowledge for undergrads, but definitely for visiting students. It's not because we want to exclude you. It's just so deeply ingrained in our head that we don't mention that it's like important. But I think Instagram is a first take approachable way for you to find out about opportunities.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do have another one. Larry knows, and some others know, that I used to also be a head of house in one of the dorms, and one of my observations was, and Yunbeen, you sort of mentioned this before, everybody at MIT is very accomplished, and we kind of wear our accomplishments, but inside we all know how flawed we are. MIT people like to present themselves as, I've got it all together, but we all need help sometimes. I think one of our biggest problems as a community, in a way, is our stunning success makes it hard for MIT people to admit they need help, to ask for support. What does each of you think we could do as individuals, as a community, to move the needle a little bit, to make it easier, friendlier, and more acceptable to ask for help?
I think understanding the environment and what you just explained. Holly Metcalf, I serve as the chair of our DEI committee in our department. Holly Metcalf, we have something in our department called One Neighborhood, and the first series of activities that we had, she talked about this spiral where people on the outside who are just arriving here, they may be in one category, and the people who've been here, they may be in another. And those people on the outside don't feel quite as comfortable. But the people on the inside, they don't know if they should reach out and help them, and the person who's outside don't know if they should ask for help. And so you're right, we put on that mask there. And so I believe that having those conversations or creating environments where it's a cool thing to bring your vulnerability. Mm-hmm. It's really cool to do that because we have what people call ground rules, but we call them front porch. So you can't gripe. And those are two of the ground rules that we have. And I think having those kind of events will allow organically barriers to be broken down. And then there's another group who may not want to share, and that's okay if you don't share, but if you go, you're gonna learn something. And I think those kind of environments can help us in so many ways.
We have both of the students on the panel are peer mentors, and I know at least in student life we have a staff mentoring program, and I think even if people don't sign up or seek out the sort of designated mentors, that the more we use that language and offer those kind of opportunities, the more normal it becomes.
Yep.
when I switched roles 2 years ago, there's all sorts of things that I didn't know what was going on. And I just appreciated the message over and over again that you have colleagues and they will help. And they will help you figure out what in the world's going on with the budgeting process, and we'll all get through it.
I think the destigmatization of being vulnerable and asking for help is definitely essential in like pushing that forward and encouraging more people to be comfortable with it. But I know that's like a big ask for the community, and I think one step as an individual you can make is really offering your support regularly to your friends and those around you, making sure you're checking in on them. Like, for example, one of my friends, it's midterm season right now, so they were not feeling great, and I just offered to talk to them, and we got lunch today. And I think that's just like something that's easy. I was already planning on getting lunch, of course, but yeah, and I just wanted to make sure they were okay. So making like small efforts to identify, like when you can identify when someone's in distress, when they need help but aren't really sure what to do, just lessening the strain on them and like sharing it a little bit together is always great. So.
I know I'm hogging it right now, but I got to leave in a few minutes and get something else in there. I used to hate parent-teacher nights. 6 weeks in, and they give you a report, and they want to tell you how good or how bad your kid done something. But if they're in trouble, 6 weeks is a long time. It's hard to catch up. So I used to leave my cell phone. Here's my cell phone number. If they don't do well today, call me, right now, because I want to know what's going on. So I share that because I said it earlier too. I think wellness is not waiting until somebody get in trouble or belonging or whatever you call it. It's what you do organically every single day. And if you're sharing it the way you come across, to people and how you, like if you ask me for help, I might say no. But if you say, hey, look, I've been struggling with this, even though the other person's struggling. Let me tell you about this, and if you can share yours, because everybody has struggles, they're more inclined to share theirs, and therefore you just created a bond, as opposed to say, look, do you need some help? If you ask that, you're asking people to go there, and they may not be willing to do that. But if you got a story, share that story, and it may help them come in.
Yeah, if we could be more open and honest about our struggles and our failures, so that others are then more comfortable coming to us when they are in those same situations. We really live in a culture, and this is not just MIT, I think this is US-wide, of perfectionism. And we need to move away from always being perfect and putting up that wall of I can't show anyone this imperfect side of myself, because the imperfect side of yourself is where the beauty and the learning live. And opening up that imperfect side shows people so much more about you and brings them in. And then they're more willing to help you.
So even the flaws, the diamonds need the flaws to make it shine bright.
I just wanted to agree with what was said. But one thing that I noticed is I come from, as I included in my bio, I come from a pretty tight-knit family. We were kind of always depending on each other. I talked about almost everything to my mom. It was unnatural for me to not tell her what my day was or all the gossip about my friends. But that's not true for everyone that I met at MIT. Some of them are just used to keeping it closed off and keeping everything to themselves, thinking that it was a burden for them to put on somebody else if they talked about their problems to someone else. And I guess one way that I've found around it is if I start, not bogging them down with my problems, but if I start talking about my struggles, they might realize that it's not an inconvenience to me to hear what's going on in their lives, just because they never knew that was possible before. So I guess being vulnerable first will allow them to be vulnerable to me and just let them know that I exist I can listen to you. Even if I might not be able to present you with a solution, I find it incredibly helpful to just get it off my chest and just letting me be that person for them.
We have a couple of questions from our remote audience. The first one is, what advice would you give to affiliates, people who are not technically part of the MIT community, but who work here every day on campus and want to feel that sense of belonging and connectedness with the community so they can best support others? Any advice for these affiliates?
I mean, I would say I think that different events on campus are open to all. And, you know, if you see an event that you're interested in, go to it. Introduce yourself to other people, you know, have conversations. And, you know, if there's somebody that's working on something at MIT that interests you, reach out and just say, can I come talk to you about that? I've never said no to anyone here that has reached out and said, hey, I heard you're working on this interesting thing, or I heard you're involved in this thing, I'd like to know more. And I mean, just last week, somebody asked me to go have lunch with them. I really didn't know them, and by the end of our conversation, they asked me to be their mentor. Well, I'm not gonna say no to that, right? Like, yes, I will be your mentor for however long you want me to fill that role. And so just don't be afraid, just open yourself up and, you know, use that curiosity that we talked about earlier to open up those paths.
I was an affiliate for over 7 years, and it can feel hard. Just we're not always on the same informational mailing list, so people are talking about things going on campus. You're like, huh, you know, no idea. Didn't realize that. So I think that that's excellent advice for affiliates, and I think the question is a good reminder to all of us, whether it's that particular difference of being staff faculty versus affiliate or other differences, to just pause for a moment and think about who's not being included in the conversation, and who is here among us offering, you know, incredible gifts and time that we might not be seeing.
I think it like escapes the scope of student, but I think in general, it is so great to feel, not like needed, but great to feel like you can help. But it could be very easy to assume that like, oh, we won't have time to help, but you'll never know before you ask. So yeah, I mean, I think that's always, it's hard to reach out and it's kind of putting like the burden entirely on you, but most of the times people love being helpful. Like that's what a lot of people like live for, not living this entire life yourself, but kind of building connections and helping people when they're needed and just feeling that satisfaction. And yeah, reaching out is like the first step, I would say.
I think finding someone who can help you connect into those things, because I know all through the year there are invitations for staff to volunteer, that they would absolutely welcome affiliates, whether it's, you know, opening the doors to the dorms on the first day, which is just such a joy to just smile at new people, or helping out with commencement. There's times when we can work side by side where you really get to feel like part of the community and get to know people. It's just figuring out, you know, somebody hooked into one of the departments who can let you know, like, hey, here's one of those opportunities you were hoping for.
All right, here's another one. What can we do as a community to reach those who are experiencing loneliness?
I mean, it's hard to single somebody, oh, you look like you feel lonely, you should come hang out with us. But I think MIT ASA and just in general has built a really nice structure where they have so many opportunities for student organizations to take money to throw events. So it's kind of like this hierarchical thing. Like we know what we want, tailoring it to students. we know what students might be interested in, we know what we might have fun planning, and we can get assistance from this like bigger structure to get the financial aspect of it clear so we can take these events on. And although this doesn't really address like taking them maybe out of their rooms or out of their places that make them feel like especially lonely, just really trying to get the word out that there are opportunities that you can come to if you feel like your loneliness stems from there's nothing for me to do to reach out to people. And yeah, like so many clubs just host events that is open to everyone, you know, almost always free of charge. And making sure that is seen and that is common enough so that people can come, I think would be nice. And also, it's really heartwarming to see, because I'm on like Medlink's exec, to see how many people apply to be trained to help people. Like kind of planting those people all across campus so that they can be just not watching them, but be aware of what's surrounding them so they can maybe catch some flags that their friends might not be able to. I think that's just great, and we have great support from those programs. So I always find it like grateful that we have these things existing and people keep applying to keep it going. Yeah.
Coach was, oh,
I would say for, you know, students that are in the residence halls, I think, you know, res life staff does kind of see what's going on, right? And so when they start to notice that someone isn't getting out and going to things, they'll start knocking on their doors and say, hey, this program's going on. You want to come down with me? Which is a great thing that happens here. And that's something that we can do in the residence halls to help those that we notice are not coming out of their rooms very often.
Coach mentioned something that that Dr. Murthy also said, that going from feeling isolated to being in a large space with a lot of people can be really hard, because when we feel lonely, we also feel sort of socially anxious. And that can be a barrier. So I think when we can create opportunities for intentionally smaller conversations, I think that can be a real gift for sort of getting over the hump, to go to something that feels kind of manageable and low key, rather than straight to the biggest event on campus.
Last thoughts, anybody? If not, I would like to ask you to give a round of applause for all the speakers. Thank you all. I also want to say that there are books on the table. They're free. It was a publication that a bunch of students put together last year. Have one. And if you're not on the MIT Reads email list, sign up and you'll hear about future awesome events. Thanks for coming. Good night, everybody.